Hello and welcome to Mabinda TV. So for now, this is about the running mate position. So who should be the running mate? Of course, by now, it is a foregone conclusion that Kalonzo Musyoka will be the presidential candidate of the United Opposition. So if Kalonzo Musyoka does indeed become the presidential candidate of the United Opposition, who should be the running mate to Kalonzo Musyoka? Of course, you have Edin Sifuna. Or you have Edin Sifuna, you have Fred Matiangi, you have Rigathi Gachagua. So basically, Kalonzo Musyoka has already trademarked Kalonzo 2027. So basically, he feels in good spirit to be the running mate to be the presidential candidate of the United Opposition. So basically, who do you think should be his running mate? Of course, you have Edin Sifuna. Edin Sifuna was practically he is the leader of the Gen Z. He came to the limelight during the 2024 Gen Z protest. Of course, he was deeply loyal to Raila Odinga. So he fumbled a bit, but of course then he emerged as the running mate of he emerged as a Raila Bigwig. So should Edwin Sifuna be the running mate to Kalonzo Musyoka? How does that ticket look? If you think about it, Kalonzo Musyoka is going to run for his third time. Of course, he was the running mate to Raila Odinga in 2013, then 2017, in 2022 he was replaced by Martha Karua. But of course, you have other candidates that will come along. You have Fred Matiang'i. Of course, he was the de facto prime minister during Uhuru's regime, and of course, Fred Matiang'i was beloved by those who wanted things to work out. Fred Matiang'i is the crisis mode of a leader. So, a crisis mode of a leader is a leader who comes to the scene when things are so bad, so they want to change that. And then, of course, they come to the scene, they change things around, and of course, there is law and order. Of course, that is Fred Matiang'i for you. So, of course, I will compare him to the late Tanzanian president, John Pombe Magufuli. So, John Pombe Magufuli, who only could fire a civil servant there and then. That is the crisis mode of a leader, of course, according to the presiding bishop of Sitam, that is Bishop David Oginde. So basically, Fred Matiang'i is that mode of a leader. Of course, he came to the limelight when he changed Fred Matiang'i came to the limelight when he reduced the number of A's. He reduced cheating in national exams. He changed that for 141 A's, he reduced A's from thousands to just 141. That was more than less than some schools had gotten in the previous year. That is Fred Matiang'i for you. And of course, sometimes when Uhuru hit the bottle, it was Fred Matiang'i who held steady for him. And of course, he was the de facto prime minister during Uhuru's regime. Then, of course, you have another leader that could be the running mate to Kalonzo Musyoka. You have Rigathi Gachagua. Basically, he comes from the mountain. The mountain has 10 strong counties, and of course, you have Rigathi Gachagua. Basically, that is 8 million votes, and of course, that is what made William Ruto the president. The votes of Mount Kenya voting bloc, and of course, when the Mount Kenya voting bloc came along, then they romped William Ruto to victory. He beat Raila Odinga by just 200,000 votes, all of them secured from the larger Mount Kenya vote. So basically, that is the votes from Mount Kenya making Ruto president. But then, of course, it appears that William Ruto has lost nearly all the support from Mount Kenya, and of course. That is something that we will wait to see. Can Professor Kizura Kindiki fill in the void? Can Professor Kizura Kindiki fill in the void of Mount Kenya votes? It appears that Rigathi Gachagua has the votes of Mount Kenya, and of course, he will be the leader to watch. And of course, Kalonzo Gachagua ticket could also be in the opening. Of course, Gachagua says, hey cousin," to his Kamba brethren. So basically, it appears that what we need right now is just remember the Kenyan politics is conducted on the basis of tribe. That is what the Kenyan politics is conducted along. And so basically, you can be sure that Kikos will be looking who is our man at the top. And of course, some say Kindiki is not good enough because remember, Kindiki comes from the smaller Daraka community. And of course, the cousins, the Kikuyu cousins, kings, don't consider them as truly Kikuyu. Of course, that will then they will look over to Rigathi Gachagua. So basically, this will be a number crunching moment for Kalonzo Musyoka. This will be a number crunching moment for Kalonzo Musyoka because remember, he badly needs the Mount Kenya votes in order to be president. And I think if that happens, then the Mount Kenya vote could very well sway in the direction of Kalonzo Musyoka. And then there is Edwin Sifuna. Basically, I think he is tribeless. Of course, he comes from the larger western region, that is Edwin Sifuna, but I think he is largely tribeless. That is why I tend to think that then we could have Sifuna being tribeless, taking all the Gen Z votes, but of course, then the Gen Z votes are not known to vote. Last time, 8 million Kenyans sat it out. A majority of them, the Gen Zs, 8 million Kenyans did not cast their voters. Just imagine of what difference it would have made if they would have indeed voted. So basically, I think right now the tribal arithmetic could give way to a Kalonzo Gachagua ticket, but I think and then the first of the nation could be in Kalonzo Sifuna ticket, and I think a lot of revolutionaries. I just don't know how the Mount Kenya vote will turn out, but I think the rest of the country has no problem with a Kalonzo Sifuna ticket. So that's how then that ticket could be very formidable. So do you think a Kalonzo Sifuna ticket will work out? And I think Kalonzo is a social democrat, and so is Edwin Sifuna. They are both social democrats, and social democrats are about equal opportunity, putting everyone to the same starting lineup, reducing wealth inequality. And I think a report showed that for every shilling a poor person makes, a rich person makes 56 shillings. So basically, I think what right now is to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. Let's share the cake equitably. Let's take development to all parts of Kenya, and I think that is how we could remake this country. Of course, William Ruto says he is taking development, but sometimes he launches even a toilet. So basically, you cannot be sure of what the projects on the ground that William Ruto has done. Look at the price of fuel. Is William Ruto really concerned about the price of fuel? That is something that I would want to interrogate him on. So basically, the Mama Mboga, the border riders were cheated by William Ruto. The Mama Mboga and the border, they were cheated by William Ruto. So they would want to know, they would want to exert debate on the presidency of William Ruto. And remember, William Ruto could become Kenya's first one-term president. Of course, supporters, insiders, Ruto insiders say there has never been a one-term president, and so President William Ruto will not be the first one-term president. That is what the insiders of President William Ruto are saying. That is, there has never been a one-term president, and so President William Ruto will not be the first. But I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I think the marking scheme Ruto has achieved a 4. That's a failing grade. That's a D, and I think he needs to pull up his socks basically, and that is why then the united opposition needs to move in and basically take over the leadership of this country. That is how the united opposition could win and be the formidable force in this country. So basically, I think Kalonzo Musyoka, Edwin Sifuna ticket could be in the opening. The other ticket, Kalonzo Matiangi ticket, and Kalonzo Gachagua ticket. Of course, you have other leaders like Justin Muturi, Martha Karua. They will be jostling for positions. But remember, the ultimate aim is for Ruto to become a one-term president. That is how then this country could be changed. This is how this country could be turned. We could turn a leaf on this country. So basically, right now, in those formations, I think Kalonzo himself, they will lock themselves in a room and then be the elephant in the room, of course, is the running mate position. And of course, if that gets settled, then the united opposition could be in for. And I think we need a win such as so decisive that William Ruto will not shield. I think according to the Daily Nation columnist Mutuma Madhiu, he says in Africa, you need to beat the incumbent president by millions, and not just win, but bury them by millions of votes, so that even if they rig the election, they will not be able to surmount the difference. And so that is why I think the opposition needs to win by so large a margin that even if Ruto rigs the election, they will not be able to, the Ruto camp will not be able to offset that difference. And I think that is the way that we could have a united opposition forming the next government. Look at the things. SHA is not working. They are teaching problems in SHA. Corruption, runaway corruption. Look at the watch that Kipchumba Murkomen is wearing, a 1 million shilling watch. Look at all the opulence that is coming from the root of ministers, basically showing us that they are swimming in money. Look at the wealth declaration by the Ruto ministers. None of them is a hustler. All of them are billionaires. You have Mdavadi at 4 billion. You have Kabogo at 2 billion. You have Joho at 2 billion. So you can't be sure that these are billionaires. And the fact is that they are not producing anything. Basically, how can